Joining us now from the bowels of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, Jeff Schapiro. Hey, Jeff, good to have you with us, man.
Good morning, John. Quite a wind-up.
Jeff, now, you're going to be at the Advance, right?
Well, John, I'll say this. It wouldn't be a party without you. I'm looking forward to seeing all my Republican friends, and maybe some new ones.
There'll be some new ones, Jeff. Always good to have you at these things. And got to tell you this quick story. Jeff was in Cleveland as well as Philadelphia for the conventions. But at the Cleveland convention, he was staying at our delegation hotel, which was like a Holiday Inn in Strongsville. It was like an hour away.
It's posh digs.
And he took over a table there right in the middle of the, I guess, restaurant bar area. And that's where everybody hung out. So he was right in the middle of all the action. We had a lot of fun that week, Jeff. And I remember there was one thing that they had, and they wouldn't let you inside, right? What was that? They threw you out?
The first meeting of the Virginia Republican delegation was closed, and I remember making a photograph of the closed doors and then tweeting it out and pushing it to Facebook as well, and wondering what this said about an open and transparent party.
Well, now, I was part of that delegation, and I would have let you in, Jeff, but, of course, I had to go and do my show every day, and I had to leave at 3:30 a.m. every day just to get in there because it was an hour away. Then you had to go through security to get to the arena downtown because we were like 45, 50 minutes away. But if I was there, I would have let you in, Jeff.
Thank you, John. I've been thrown out of class here, John.
No question about it. All right, look, I want to get to your column the other day, Jeff Schapiro, Back to the Future, and I want you to lay this out for our audience. It is a Republican effort to change the electoral college system in Virginia. Right now, we have 13 electoral votes. It's winner take all. So Clinton wins, she gets 13. Republican wins, they get 13. And we have Republicans in the General Assembly that are saying, you know what we need to do? We need to go to awarding them by winning congressional district like they do in Maine and Nebraska. Those are the only two states that have it. And you weren't too excited about that. Can you kind of lay all of this out for our audience?
Mark Cole, who is a Republican delegate from Spotsylvania County, and he's the chairman of the House Elections Committee, is proposing that electoral college votes would be allocated according to candidate performance in congressional districts. If that scheme were in place this year, Clinton would have narrowly carried Virginia. But if that scheme were in place in 2012, when Barack Obama was defending Virginia against Mitt Romney would have won. The point being that in 2012, Obama carried the population centers, but did not enjoy a numerical advantage in the number of congressional districts. There's sort of a bonus to the Cole plan, and that is the candidate that prevails or who prevails in total districts would be awarded two at-large electoral votes. Those are representative of the United States senators. That's sort of the gravy. But what this is all about is manipulating the process. And the cynic in me wonders if Republicans, concerned about their ability to win statewide in a fast-changing and increasingly diverse Virginia, believe that a change in the electoral college process will at least give them a chance at more fully participating and maybe even winning in a state that, at least at the presidential level since 2008, has been reliably blue. Now, of course, a manipulation such as this could, if it were put in place, could very well come back and bite Republicans in the soft spot.
Well, okay, so let's just be clear of what the plan is that Cole is presenting. Is the plan is to award electors on congressional district like Maine and Nebraska has, or is it if you win?
Correct. And this is not the first time, John, that a Republican, and for that matter, a Democrat, has proposed this. I think one of your regular guests, Schapiro, state senator from Northern Virginia, has talked up this idea, actually introduced a bill or two. Typically, these bills are a reaction to getting gored politically, that is. The last time this was done was 2013. A state senator from rural, very red Western Virginia, Bill Carrico, tried to do this. And among those who stopped it was the Republican governor at the time, Bob McDonnell. I think that's rather telling in that Bob McDonnell, the last Republican to win statewide, and doing so by putting together that important coalition that includes a strong performance in the cities and the suburbs. It was the governor's concern that this would needlessly undercut the state's leverage, increasing leverage in national politics, and it quietly died in the Senate Elections Committee.
All right, so if that were in place now, so Virginia has 13 electoral votes. Right now it's a winner-take-all. So if they went to this proportion by congressional district and you just took 216, how many of the electors would Trump have won versus Clinton, right? He would have won the 2nd district, right? He would have won the 9th, the 6th, the 5th. What else? Maybe the 1st, so that's 5, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would
the 7th?
It would have been, I'm doing the arithmetic quickly, it would have come down, I think, is it 8-5? It would have come down 8-5.
8-5 Clinton. So 5 would have gone to Trump, and then the person that wins the popular vote in the state would get the 2 bonus electors.
Correct.
Right. So rather than it going
2 at-large federal legislators, the U.S. senators.
So rather than going 13-0, it would have been 8 Clinton, 5 Trump. And the argument the Republicans have for this, obviously, the first argument is the Republican would have gotten 5 delegates they wouldn't have had under the current system. But I guess the other argument is that it was Nebraska's argument, as I was researching this, was that the state is very diverse. You have different areas that vote different ways. And so they wanted to give all Nebraskans, and the same thing in Maine, all people of Maine, an important voice in the outcome, and didn't want you to feel if you were in rural Maine, basically you don't have a say in what's going on. That was the argument that passed there, but that was some time ago.
And Mark Cole, to his credit, John, has said he is hearing from a lot of rural Virginians, read Republicans, who feel that they are, in effect, I'm going to use that word, disenfranchised
right.
In the Electoral College because of that big, powerful, increasingly blue vote out of Northern Virginia. But remember, it's not just Northern Virginia that's powering the Democratic performance in statewide elections. It's an important distinction in statewide elections. It's about nearly a dozen localities with populations of 250,000 or more, all kind of packed in that eastern half of the state. Suburban, urban areas that are showing increasing Democratic strength. And they are areas where Republicans can prevail in essentially manipulated legislative districts that are decided in off-year elections when turnout is very low. So this is a way to, if you will, game the system. Now, of course, it's not something that Republicans alone have done. In that article, I mentioned an attempt by the old conservative Democratic regime back in the 40s to manipulate the Electoral College to deny the state's votes to Harry Truman. And that was retaliation for Truman taking steps to loosen the grip of segregation in the South and across the country.
That's right. You know what? I remember reading that article, and I thought that was the best piece of it, going back to the 1948 election. Strom Thurmond ran as the Dixiecrat, right? and Harry Truman was a Democratic nominee. And so conservative Democrats wanted to change it so they could award electors to Strom Thurmond running as the Dixiecrat. That's why you titled your column Back to the Future. So, look, really this is all to do about nothing, because even if this got past the Senate, out of committee, got to the House, got out of that, McAuliffe would veto it in a nanosecond, right? So that's out. And in order for this to actually become law, Republicans, you would think, would have to win the state house, keep their majorities, bring it up again, and even then it's going to face resistance. So what would you put the percentage, Jeff Schapiro, of this ever happening?
I would say certainly in the near term, it's unlikely. And I suspect that the Republican candidates for governor, the four of them, are going to be asked about this because, John, as you have discussed many times in your role as a broadcaster and as the Trump leader in Virginia, and I'm not trying to suck up to you, John, there's a Republican Party out there that's deeply divided. There are lots of candidates standing for statewide office next year, as you have reminded us, and I suspect will continue to remind us,
yes,
who are anything but devoted to Donald Trump.
Yes.
And this issue, I think, is one of those issues that can spotlight those fissures among Republicans.
Well, there's going to be a lot to talk about, Jeff, no doubt. I think the real question for Republicans is very simple, and I keep asking it to every statewide candidate that comes on. As the Trump chairman of Virginia, I'm responsible for the loss. I lost the three northern cities, not the region, cities: Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, Jeff, by 312,000 votes. I mean, there's nowhere to make this up. But I tell you what's even more troubling is when you dig down in these numbers, Henrico, gone. Richmond, disaster. I'm talking about for Republicans winning statewide.
John, what about Chesterfield?
Chesterfield. We only
Trump
carried Chesterfield.
limped out of Chesterfield with a 4,200 vote majority.
Chesterfield, very troubling. Chesapeake, troubling. Virginia Beach, troubling. I mean, the Republicans did not roll the majorities up in core areas they should have. Meantime, you got these areas that they're getting annihilated in. 320,000 in Northern Virginia. Look, I lost Blacksburg. I lost Charlottesville. I got blasted. I mean, Williamsburg, now we're getting blasted. You can't make them up. Republicans are going to have to figure this out because right now you look at these numbers, and you really pointed it out. And I said all week, I'm going to know how we're going to do in the first 10 minutes of the Chesterfield results. And when we were running 52-48, I said it's over. I mean, it's just a matter of how much we get beat by, because this is an area Republicans have to carry by 12, 15,000. We carried it by 4,200. You can't win, right?
Not with those kinds of majorities. The advantage, of course, for Republicans looking to 2017, or one of the advantages, again, it's process-based. There's going to be a dramatic decline in turnout in 2017. It'll go from 71% this year to 40-something% next year, and that will magnify the strength of that diminished and that diminishing Republican base, white, conservative, largely male. It's a vote that always turns up. Unlike Democrats, who have a dickens of a time getting voters to participate off year, and off year, their focus is primarily federal.
All right, I got to take off. I want to thank iconic Richmond Times long-term columnist Jeff Schapiro for being with us. Always good to have you with us, Jeff. We'll look forward to seeing you next weekend at the Republican Advance at the Omni Hotel in Richmond. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Keep it right here.